Mayor Emily Styron here, and we are doing a very special live Facebook Live event this evening to discuss a little bit of what's going to be happening down at the State House. We have very special guests, both our representatives at the State House. Senator J.D. Ford is here with us this evening, and State Representative Donna Schaibley is also here with us. Senator Ford, Representative Schaibley, thank you so very much for carving out some time this evening to discuss the top 5. We've got 5 issues that our community has responded to our questions, our request for questions. Overwhelmingly, there's a group of a set of issues that our community would love to hear a little bit more from you all on as it relates to priorities and legislation, and just your gut feel in terms of how this session is going to approach some of these topics. So we can jump right in, but if there's anything either of you want to start from, to mention at the top of the hour, this is a great opportunity for you to say hi and mention any of that.
You first, Senator.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mayor, and it's good to see you, Representative Schaibley. Thanks for putting this on this evening. It's great to always be with you and to hear what's the priorities for the town of Zionsville. First and foremost, it's an honor to represent all of you in the state Senate. And I've got some exciting news on my end with the recent election. That gives us the opportunity to kind of change things inside our caucus. So we added an extra seat to the Senate Democratic Caucus. So we are now at 11 members. And with that new change, I've been elected as our caucus chair. So I've moved into leadership. Really excited about that. And also, I'll be serving as the ranking minority member on the Education Committee, as well as our Transportation and Homeland Security, Veterans, Family and Children's Services Committee, as well as our Elections Committee. So I've got some bills that I'd like to talk about as we move along our conversation, but I just wanted to share that news. And again, it's great to be here with all of you.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Schaibley.
Very nice. Thank you so much. And thanks, Emily, for arranging this, and for Amanda for really helping to put this together and keeping us all kind of informed of what's going on. Appreciate it so much. Thanks to everybody out there that's watching. I too am just totally honored to represent the town of Zionsville and District 24. I'm in my 4th term down at the State House now. And I just feel very honored to have this position. Currently I sit on I'm the Vice Chairman of Courts and Criminal Code. I sit on Financial Institutions and Insurance Committee, and I am on Public Health this time for the first time, which I'm very happy about because I've actually been very involved in healthcare legislation for the past few years. And it just makes sense for me to sit on that committee. So that's very exciting. Look forward to having a chat with you this evening, sharing what we're doing. I'd love to share some of the bills I'm doing as well. So if we have time to do that, that would be fabulous. Thank you.
Absolutely. We will most definitely have time to do that. And yeah, we'll make time for whatever you all are interested in sharing. This is a great opportunity for us to hear from you. So don't feel like you'll get boxed in. We're not going to shut everything off at 8, right, Amanda?
No, take as long as you need.
Right. Good. Well, 2020 has been particularly shaped by COVID-19. So it makes sense for us to start off this evening to hear from you all a little bit about how things are going from the State House with regard to addressing COVID, and what you're hearing from the administration, and just what kind of information can you share with us with regard to vaccinations and priorities? We're all eager to put this pandemic in a vial and in its place, which is out of our out of our public health issues.
Right. Do you want to go first or me?
Why don't you go first, Donna? I know.
Okay, I'll go first. Actually, JD's on the continuity committee, so he's got kind of the inside scoop on what everything, on what's going on. But I have been following that committee and also the reports that it's sent out. And COVID is going to be very different down at the State House this year. Going down on Organization Day, I mean, we had talked about it before, but actually going down there and physically being there and actually seeing where we're going to be the representatives. We're not even going to have, we're not going to be meeting on the floor of the House. We're going to be meeting in the Government South building, and they have a large room there where we each have like individual tables. They can do social distancing. And but we'll have to travel back and forth between the State House and our offices and over there. Our committee hearings are going to be over there as well. And so it's really it kind of alters the dynamic. But they're committed still to having transparency. I mean, that's very important. Everything will be televised, and open to the public. So I mean, there are commitments that I know the continuity, and I'll let JD talk about those, that the continuity committee has made so that we do provide transparent work as we go forward. I've been told that our schedules are going to be very different. We'll probably have to go into the evening on committees because there's very limited committee space that can handle the committees. We'll only be in the committee rooms, but everything will be televised, and the people that are testifying will be testifying from another room. On the floor, when we're on the floor, our LAs can't come in, so we actually have to really be organized because we won't be able to call our LAs to come and bring us some things if we don't have them. So the dynamic is going to be very different. And I mean, I just know working on legislation, it's been, you can do Zoom calls, but it's not the same as sitting down with someone and talking face to face. It's really it's changed kind of the dynamic. It's made it, I think, a lot more difficult. But we're up to the task. We'll do it. We're flexible, but it will be a challenge to make this work. But I know that they put a lot of time into it, and I'll let JD share what they're doing.
Yeah, thank you. And that's a great place to start is the Continuity Committee. And spent a lot of time this summer serving on that committee. Continuity, when we think of it, not necessarily just COVID. I mean, what happens if a tornado came through and plowed the State House down? So we touched on that just a little bit, but most of our work was centered around COVID-19. We had a great conversation. I really enjoyed my time on that committee. Enjoyed the members on that committee. I still have some concerns, kind of left over from that committee. Particularly, I was very passionate about making sure that all of us wear our masks at the State House. There are some members who are not wearing their mask. And so I'm concerned about that. Also just, concerned about, as Donna mentioned, about access to us, making sure that our friends in the hall, as well as, members of the press, even just visitors, come into the State House, have access to us. I'm worried that because of COVID-19 that we won't be easily accessible, but I do agree that with Zoom that does help. We're able to help set up those meetings. But so the Continuity Committee really kind of centered around what can we do as legislators. So as mentioned, the House of Representatives will be over in the Government Center South. The Senate has decided to stay in the Senate chamber. And so it's a little disjointed in the sense that some of our members will be on the floor, some of the members will be in the gallery, which is where my seat will be. But I think all of us are going back to the session in January the 4th with the idea that things are going to look a little different as we move into the next legislative session. And it's going to be an important year for us. So we're going to be dealing with the COVID-19 relief. We still have money kind of left over from the federal government that we're still trying to figure out where that goes. We've got the actual budget that we've got to get done. We've got a redistricting year that's going to be really important for us. And so we've got a lot of stuff, to tackle. And I think overall, I think everybody wants us to go back in a safe environment. So there's no dispute about that. I mean, Hoosiers are back working and, we're back working. It's just that we just want to make sure that we're doing it in a safe way. And then to your other point, Mayor Styron, about the vaccinations. So I'm happy to report that our first healthcare workers are receiving that vaccination as we speak. And I think, I, like many of you, teared up a little bit when I saw those vaccines going into those healthcare workers, simply because, that is the light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, we're still in that tunnel, as Dr. Box mentioned. But I think, we're getting one step closer. So the state has received approximately 50,000-ish of those vaccines. We've got the other, company that's currently being vetted. So hopefully we'll get another round of that. But, to be honest with you, there isn't a lot of information out there on the vaccine. And that's just because we just don't have a lot of that information. And what I would say to all Hoosiers, and particularly to Zionsville residents, is pay attention to the Indiana State Department of Health's website. They've got some information about the vaccinations listed there. So we will shout it from the rooftops when it's your turn to be vaccinated. But for right now, it's the healthcare workers where the state has the most focus.
I did check out that website today. Amanda, it might be a good idea for us to link to the new vaccination update website that the governor's office, Peggy sent us an email about that. And it should help us keep track of what are the next, rounds and the populations that they're going to be directed towards. As you just said, JD, it is a process.
Yeah.
And it's a supply chain and a distribution model and a priority setting. And so getting it started is so important. One of my very best friends got a shot this week, and it's just really terrific to see those healthcare workers front of the line, the first responders in this pandemic being vaccinated.
Yeah. May I add one more thing to that?
Of course.
The other piece of information, and I'm not sure if Representative Schaibley, if you're getting these emails, but some folks are expressing interest of, is it safe? Should I get it? And so there's some information from also the State Department of Health that kind of lay out that information. I mean, I plan to get the vaccination, when it's my time, when it's appropriate for me. And I think, there's a lot of misinformation out there about this. So I would encourage folks to really take this time to, educate and research on this, so that way when it's your time, you are ready to go.
And I would like to say, I'd like to give some kudos out to the hospitals and the Hospital Association, because I talked to them, Brian Tabor last week, and he had, discussed about how they had really worked out a great plan for distribution, and it's very organized. And I don't know that all states have done that, so I want to give them, a shout out that they've really done a good job in, combination with the state health department.
That's fantastic. Yeah, wonderful. Well, one question that that came to mind as it relates to some of the mitigation strategies we've used with COVID-19 to stay connected, what we're doing right now, for example, there's been that allowance to make virtual meetings virtual. So what we're doing, and what I understand that the governor is advocating is that we make that a permanent option available, that the access that the public has had to public meetings has just been off the charts. You all, I know, are seeing that and have seen that. Where do both of you fall as it relates to supporting the governor's request that this virtual meeting space becomes another option available for local governments and state offices and those of us who are subject to the governance of how we communicate and then make it available to the public.
Well, I absolutely think making it available to the public. I mean, I've talked to several different organizations and people who have said that their viewership has. I mean, people don't come to the meetings. You got to get out, you got to get in the car, but they're actually people are attending the virtual meetings, and great. People, the more people get information, the more people find out about things, the more people that participate, the better is what I feel. So.
I do too. That's awesome.
I just want to co-sign, what Representative Schaibley said. I think, even for myself, I think some of our time is kind of trapped in the car, driving from place to place to place. And, and Zoom makes it really easy for us to, kind of pop on, pop off, sometimes to the detriment of being back to back to back to back to back. But, we also have to schedule some time to, step away and get some fresh air and things of that nature. But I agree. I think this is good. Anytime we can, have a mechanism to allow more people involved in the process. The only thing I would say is that, I just want to keep in mind that there are folks who feel very passionate about some of our issues and that they want to be able to express it. So just making sure that there's a mechanism for them to do that. And so that way their voices can be heard. But outside of that, I think it's great.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, keep us posted and we will we'll continue to keep that open line of communication as it relates to COVID. We appreciate you all working to support our Main Street vendors, Main Street business owners and restaurants. We all of our, the entire country and world has been impacted by the steps that we've taken to try to protect public health. And I know that you all have had a pretty monumental task to figure out different ways and strategies to help to mitigate that impact. And we've got a very strong chamber, a great, a fantastic council, a lot of public servants here in Zionsville that are ready to keep this line of communication going as it relates to how we keep looking for ways to support those who are impacted by COVID. Ironically, the state is impacted by it, from a revenue standpoint in much of the same ways that we are. So I know in this way, we're all in this together. So hopefully we'll keep working together to mitigate this.
Yeah, the Zionsville Chamber's website that has the shopping on their website. What a great idea that is. I mean, that is just fantastic.
Yeah,
they've done a great job. I'll shout out to Allison on that.
Absolutely. They have pivoted every step of the way to look for creative, fun, engaging ways to keep the business owners in the front of people's minds here in our community. It's been wonderful.
Yep, absolutely. Our small businesses, not only are they the backbone of our community, but it's been interesting to watch how, like you said, Mayor Styron, that they've pivoted. They've been very creative and innovative on how they do things. In fact, I just sent a note to the owner of the Flying Cupcake. She was on TV talking about how they were getting the cupcake from behind the counter to out to the customer, and it kind of came down this little chute. Just things of that nature that you just kind of sit back and you're just in awe of how folks have been kind of tackling, and taking their business and being creative about it. And certainly I know that, I want to, continue to support them and their endeavor and whatever they can do. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the Boone EDC has also been very supportive with a loan program. Our Zionsville Redevelopment Commission has had a lot of luck with our grant program. We've, I think, given out over $100,000 worth of grants to Zionsville businesses. So there's definitely a lot of local support and we appreciate the state support and focus as well. So education, the governor has a new Secretary of Education, and priorities. Again, just another entire area that COVID has upended. And I know, I have two children, one in high school and one in third grade here at the local level. I always forget that college student. I have 3 kids. I tend to only talk about the 2 that are still living here every day. But they are, they're doing remote learning. Their teachers are, they've pivoted to a completely different way of teaching. And the administrators and all of the counselors and everything everyone's doing to try to meet such a myriad of teaching techniques and student preferences, meeting the community where their comfort level is. It's just extraordinary.
Yeah, it truly is. I mean, I have, take my hat off to all the teachers, because I know they're not only teaching in the classroom, but teaching virtually, and it's a very different thing to do both of those, and to jump on board and figure out all the different techniques you need to do that. I had an experience trying to teach my first grade granddaughter one day, virtual learning, and she was absolutely adorable, of course, but she's there, sitting at the computer, raising her hand, and
so cute.
but it was, quite adorable, but it's very time consuming. And I also have to say, for the parents, shout out to them for all the effort that they're putting into this, because it is definitely a very time consuming thing, and trying to, when they are home virtually, trying to do that, and often trying to work from home at the same time. So everybody's had to make just a whole bunch of adjustments. And I have to say, hats off to everybody for all the work they're doing.
Yeah, just same, I just thank you to all of our educators for, being out there, and it's been very challenging, but they have definitely, taken on that and then some. And, and I think with that commission report that was released earlier this week, I think I think we really need to read that and digest it and really start to act on it, because in my opinion, I don't think we've fully taken teacher pay seriously. And the Senate Democrat Caucus year after year have offered these proposals to help boost up the teacher pay. That report says that those teachers should have an average pay of about $60,000. And so, we just have not been funding education as much as I think we should. And the other thing I will say is that, typically we hear, at the State House that, well, it's about the locals. If they want to do it, then they can do it. Well, we also should send them the money to help them do that. And I don't think that we've done that. And so, and I will just say that I had a blast serving as an e-learning facilitator for the IPS students. So I had a little pod of students, and my job was to help get them connected and make sure that they were staying on their routine. And there were days where I'm like, oh my goodness, there was, they got to log on to this platform, and then they had to submit their homework through this platform, and making sure that they're, at their lunch break, and so it really showed me how much our educators are doing inside the classroom, but also what our parents were expected. And I had some parents tell me, like, God bless our teachers, they actually got a snapshot of what some of those folks have to deal with on a daily basis. But there is, so the General Assembly a couple years ago decided to remove the Superintendent of Public Instruction as an elected position and move it to the Secretary of Education. And so there's now a new Secretary of Education. Her name is Katie Jenner. She was the Senior Advisor to the Governor on Education Policy. And so she's now our new Secretary of Education. And I understand, and Donna, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand from recent reports that the State Board of Education is now being moved under the Department of Education. And so I thought that was interesting. I don't know, did you hear something along those lines?
I've heard that, but I've just heard that, and I don't know that that's
Yeah,
fact.
yeah, same thing for me. I heard it, but I haven't really kind of seen anything out there about that. But the other thing I want to mention real quickly on this topic is that, you know, we love testing in our state, and I agree to that to some degree. We've got to see where our students are, but I think that with the recent reports out about how difficult it has been for children to learn during this pandemic, I'm going to be very watchful about, you know, what kind of testing we're doing on the kids, and making sure that it's not too much. So, and with that, I will yield on the education front.
Well, I'd like to say, yeah, I think we really do need to pay attention to the commission report, because it had 37 recommendations on how we can get more fund, more money into the teachers' pockets. And I absolutely agree that we should be doing that. And it's all of us working together, I think, to make that happen, both on the local level, the school board level, the district level, and the state level. So we all need to work together to make that happen.
Yep.
That's wonderful to hear. You know, Zionsville has a fantastic school district, and you all know that at times when you've yourself been on the ballot, so has a referendum to help fund our schools. The issues with school financing are real for communities across the state. So thank you for really digging into what our options are to continue to increase the opportunities to pay our teachers even just a fraction of what they're worth, because it would be pretty much, I think it would break the bank to really truly pay them what they're worth. But they are gold for sure for our kids.
And I think if we don't, then we run the risk of, you know, driving folks out of the classroom and dare I say out of our state, you know, because, you know, the other surrounding states, you know, do have a higher average salary. So yeah, I totally agree. And one other point, if I may, I was very honored to be selected as the 2020 Legislator of the Year by the Indiana School Social Worker Association. And so I asked, you know, why me? And they said, well, we felt that you were, you know, out there fighting for the students and for our families, and so I'm very honored to receive that award.
Congratulations! That's a great honor for our state.
Thank you.
Well, let's talk a little bit about redistricting and what does this process entail. Tell us a little bit more about what the you know, what does Zionsville need to understand as it relates to redistricting, and maybe personalize it a bit too with regard to what our districts currently look like from your perspective.
You want me to go first or you? I can't remember who went first last time.
I think
it's always ladies first.
Is it okay? All right. Well, then I'll take that. Well, my understanding that we're not going to get the census numbers till like after April 1st. Is that correct? Is that your understanding, JD?
Yeah, March, end of March or early April. Yeah. Yeah,
which is kind of interesting, but given, you know, our session is not scheduled to last much beyond that, but I think that it probably will last a little bit beyond that. You know, once we get the numbers, then, you know, I mean, my understanding is, like, for the House districts, they divide them by 100, and whatever the total number is, and the Senate districts, they divide them by 50, and then, you know, each district's supposed to have about that many people, you know, for it would be 1/100th of whatever the general population is. What I foresee is, I mean, I have two of the fastest growing communities in the state, if not more. I might have three. And my district, I think, the boundaries are going to have to shrink, you know, by a fair amount because of that. Now, where they shrink, I really haven't really kind of given it much thought, but they're going to have to, you know, somehow condense. And I'm not sure what your population looks like JD as far as your whole district. I'm not totally sure what how your district is set up, but you know, and I mean, I think they draw, you know, I mean, the lines are drawn. I'm hoping that it will be a transparent process. I've been supportive of redistricting reform through the years down at the State House, and, you know, signed on for that.
I appreciate
and
that.
I really want to make sure that it's transparent, so that, you know, the public and people understand what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I know sometimes some people think Republican or Democrat, you know, we don't find common ground, but we do. And a lot of the stuff that we do at the State House, I think Representative Schaibley will attest to this, is that a lot of it's unanimous, a lot of it's bipartisan, and there's the small sliver where we've got to go into our corners and fight it out. But I am happy to report that, you know, this is an effort that, you know, Representative Schaibley and I definitely agree on. You know, I believe, and I think we all believe, that, you know, the process should be fair, it should be open, it should be transparent, the public should have input, you know, they should have the ability to draw their own maps. You know, I think in 2010, when they did it, they had some computer terminals where people can go and draw their own maps. And I think, you know, we've evolved 10 years later where we can actually do that from our own phones. And so I would love to see that technology be implemented. I've been appointed as the Senate Democratic minority appointee to the redistricting committee. So I'll have a front row seat. And I just really want folks to know that we will be stuck with these maps until 2030. And so it's really important for folks to stay engaged and involved in this process. I firmly believe that politicians should not be picking the districts. But the way that, you know, it's kind of set up in our state is that it's, you know, we as a legislature, we're kind of required to do that. But, you know, we've all had and seen proposals where there could have been an independent redistricting committee that could have helped with this process. You know, some of my counterparts will say, well, you know, you'll never take the politics or the bias out of it. But, you know, I think we should do, you know, something along those lines. Unfortunately, those proposals never made it across the finish line at the State House. I am happy to report that there's another group called Common Cause who is doing an independent redistricting committee, and they are looking for folks to serve on that committee. So if you have an interest, please reach out to those folks. But they kind of simultaneously throughout this legislative session, they will be doing their own redistricting kind of commission. And I'm excited to see what they come up with. But the one thing I will say is that the Senate Democratic Caucus on Organizational Day back in November had a press conference on this issue. And one of the things that we are asking for is we understand that the commission, it's going to be, you know, to set it up and to recruit people, it's going to take too long of a process. And so what we're asking for is some guardrails, some guidelines, some standards to put in place. So we're not, you know, drawing the maps. You know, we have a set of, you know, guidelines that we can all agree to. And so we're asking for that bill to get a hearing at the very beginning of session. So that way the governor can take a look at it and sign it and get it in place before, as Representative Schaibley said, we receive the information from the federal government. So, you know, just my fear is that, you know, that the maps will be drawn in a closed room somewhere with no little input, but with the illusion that public is being invested. And I hope that's not the case. You know, this is my first redistricting, and so I'll see if that is true or not. But I just hope that, you know, we can all agree that, you know, this is a process that we should take serious, and that we should allow the public to be involved and have some transparency on.
Great. Well, thank you both for being advocates for a fair and open and transparent process. That seems to always put more of those guardrails in place when things are, when that's where you start from, fair and transparent. Yep. So thank you both. We have here in the town of Zionsville completed our first climate action planning process with the IU's resiliency project, and it's been very exciting to go through that process and just really benchmark some of our climate action planning metrics that we'll use. And certainly energy consumption is a component of that plan. I'm curious what sort of energy related bills or legislation may hit your desk this year. Things that may include rooftop solar legislation. What kind of legislation might you put into place as it relates to taxing solar farms that might be on rural land? There's a variety of different things that we're exploring and looking at, but tax implications and other types of legislation or regulatory requirements that might be involved that could end up making some of those decisions less favorable. So interested to hear about anything you might have to share with us with regard to either opening the door to invite more renewables and more non-traditional energy sources, or where maybe we should be cautious because there could be some limits that come through legislation.
Well, I was there when the net metering bill went through, so I guess I don't think you were there yet, JD. So
No.
I'll take that. I'll take that on because I've been there long enough to see that. But I was opposed to that bill, and I have actually co-authored bills with Carrie Hamilton trying to roll back the language in that bill to prior to that to the 309. When that happened, and I am a firm believer that that should happen. I have heard rumblings that there will be another bill this year that will try again to roll that back.
Tell us a little bit about what net metering is for those.
Well, net metering is, if you say you have a rooftop solar or whatever, and you're producing more than you're using, that when you send it back, when it goes back to the electric company, you get a credit for that, and you get a credit. You used to be able to get a credit for what the retail price was, okay, not the wholesale price of it. And when 309 went through, it allowed that for a while, but then it put limits as far as how much you could get back. And there were several, I don't know, there was like 10 years later, 15 years later, whatever.
Right.
And so it has really kind of put a crimp in the solar energy business. I mean, my son actually lives in Arizona. He has a complete solar roof, totally powers even in the 110-degree weather. His air conditioning and all of his electricity needs out there, and I'm a big proponent of it, and I think we need to do what we can to support it. So I've heard that may be out there, and I certainly would be supportive of rolling that back.
Well, let us know how we can support you in terms of furthering that advocacy.
Okay, and I know I think there may be a bill. There has been in the past a bill about the homeowners associations not allowing people to have solar panels on their roofs, putting restrictions on having solar panels on their roofs or certain portions of their roofs, say if they're visible from the street. And that I would imagine that might come back. I don't know. The only thing I say this year, because this is such an odd year because of COVID, we've been asked not to put out, to be very, kind of tight or judicious on what we offer this year because of the time constraints. It's going to take so long to do bills. I think things are going to be so different. And we've got very, very, with COVID and all these other things that we normally don't have. So I'm not sure, if people are maybe restricting the bills that they're going to put forward, but I would not be surprised if there was another rooftop solar bill out there coming through. And I don't know, have you heard of any more, JD?
Yeah, you know, I have heard, and I actually have something drafted myself, and really just I think, you know, as Representative Schaibley mentioned, we have received a 10 bill limit in the Senate, and traditionally during a budget year we get unlimited filing of bills. So I'm kind of juggling to see which bills, but you know, I think that, you know, I've gone door to door when I was campaigning in 2018, and heard a lot of Zionsville residents very, you know, excited about rooftop solar, and you know, I know that there are some residents that will even actually open their home and you can come tour and see how it's done. And I've done that, and it's you know, I think it's we should be celebrating you know, solar, and actually we should be celebrating all renewables in my personal opinion. I think we're leaving jobs and money on the table by not opening the door for these renewables. And just briefly, I had a small brief stint on the 21st Century Task Force, which was basically taking a comprehensive look at the energy policy of our state. You know, I ultimately voted no against that report simply because I just didn't believe that we're willing or prepared to have a serious conversation about renewables. And I say that, you know, kind of on the heels of the legislature passing House Bill 1414, which was, in my opinion, the coal bailout bill, which basically gave money to some of our coal companies to renovate their structures. So, you know, and that bill was passed kind of in an agreement that we wouldn't really pass any, you know, energy policy until that task force was completed. So that report is done and it's out there for folks for their review. But, you know, I just think that, you know, in particular with this issue, the rooftop solar, we should be doing everything we can to make it easier for our residents to enjoy it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate both of you for your interest, your background, and sharing some of that knowledge with us. So the fifth item on our list, and we're getting pretty close to the end at this point. I want to briefly bring this up and give you both time to share any other parting thoughts or issues for our listening audience, watching audience. Broadband Initiatives is a big deal for Zionsville, particularly in our Perry Township incorporated area. And I noticed that it made the list on the Lieutenant Governor's Next Level Connections program with regard to broadband initiatives. What do you see potentially coming out of the state legislature this year that will support some of our rural areas that are in broadband deserts that are you know, our community they have folks who have children in school trying to do remote learning. Some of them are full-time homeschool students. All of them have some limited broadband, have a need for more broadband access.
Yeah.
So what's on your mind that you?
Yeah, I what you just said is important, because there are places with no broadband, but there are a lot of places that don't have sufficient broadband, so that they actually they don't have enough to do the work that they need to do. And I mean, I've heard stories about people taking their children to, buy a Starbucks or buy us down to the school parking lot, trying to, so that they can do their homework and do that. And we have to do something about that. And it's not just school, it's telemedicine. I mean,
Absolutely.
COVID has brought to the forefront how very important telemedicine is.
Yes.
So, actually, I think it's really, not to say COVID is good, but I mean, I think it's pushed telemedicine to the forefront, much faster than it would be. And that I think is a good thing, because, especially for people in rural areas where maybe they might not have access to the same kind of health care that we have, we are blessed with here, because, we have doctors and hospitals all over the place. So, I think broadband is a high priority in this session out of the non-COVID and the other things that, you mentioned, and education. Of course, it's all important, but I mean, it's really, when I've been on all kinds of calls, that's always brought up as an issue, always brought up as being very important. And I know the governor's got, has the plan to go forward. JD and I were just on a call with AT&T, talking to them, a conference call about, their plans to expand and what we need to do to expand broadband. So it's a top issue, and it's something that we need to not just talk about, do something about.
I love to hear the passion in your voice around this. If we didn't have a road infrastructure to get an ambulance to one of those, a neighborhood or a community, that would be a 5-alarm sort of situation. And you're just helping to underscore this is also a very critical public health, public education, public continuity, engagement, economic opportunities, everything.
Yeah.
Everything is
right
now determined by having this access.
Yeah, I'll say ditto to everything that you both said, and like Representative Schaibley, I've heard some stories, kids going to Starbucks, or McDonald's because they're open late, to get the Wi-Fi. I've heard the South Bend Community School Corporation deployed their buses into the neighborhood so students could connect, to the Wi-Fi because they had the Wi-Fi on the buses. We talked about, telehealth. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has really drastically, suicide rates have increased. And so, the telehealth is so crucial, because people are feeling really devastated right now, and so, and picking up the pieces and having a counselor to talk to, as opposed to getting your car and go and drive and, sit down with someone, and you can just log on and talk to someone is so crucial. And so, I'm excited to look at the proposal that's going to hopefully come through the General Assembly next year. And, I hope to support it, and we'll support it.
Wonderful. Well, we've got about 10 minutes left. So what else would you like to ask, share, chat about?
You want to go? Okay, ladies first. I forgot. Okay, I'll go first. Well, I've got. I'm very passionate about healthcare costs, and trying to keep them down, and price transparency. I think it's absolutely imperative that people be able to find out how much medical procedures cost prior to having them done, and actually be able to compare prices between different healthcare facilities. And I'm going to be putting forth legislation. I started it last year with the APCD, kind of the ground rules for getting an RFI and RFP, so we get information on about the all-payer claims database. And I'm going to be writing some legislation this year about setting it up and kind of setting up a board and the kind of the ground rules. And it's really important. And what it is, an all-payer claims database is a database where claims data from insurance companies is, it's there, it's washed of all identifying features, but it's all their claims data, for pharmacy and, physicians' costs and everything goes into this database. And from that, they can produce a forward-facing portal for consumers. And you will, this is my vision. So this is in the bill. Okay, my vision is that you'll be able to go to this, once it's set up, you'll be able to go to this portal. If you have insurance, put in your insurance card, whatever kind of insurance you have, put in whatever procedure you're going to have, and you will be able to shop between providers based on price and quality metrics, so that you can actually look at a price and quality of a procedure that you're having. Because not always the best, highest price place is the best place. Often, you can get it for a much better value, okay? So I'm very excited about it, and I'm hoping I have your support, JD. You'll see when you see the bill, right?
Wonderful. Great.
So that's the one I'm most excited. I've got other things, but that's the one that I'm really fired up
That's wonderful to hear, Donna. And I know that this community will love to support you and add any sort of context or assistance that you
Well,
need.
when I went door to door and I would talk about that, oh my gosh, everybody just would say, wow, that's really great. That
Right.
sounds wonderful, you know.
It does.
And so I'm really excited.
I just want to commend you, Representative Schaibley, for taking that on. And, you know, I hear from constituents regularly who, you know, have gotten the surprise bill, and, you know, and it's no fun. And, you know, so I think, you know, something like that would be very powerful. So is it okay if I go?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm saying okay. I don't know, Emily, it's your show.
Absolutely. You guys have made this job just really, really easy.
Well, I thought I would, in these kind of final comments, you know, just share with you the Senate Democrat Caucus Priorities. And so we've got 3 things that we've kind of centered around, and that is for fighting for our workers. You know, the governor at the very beginning of this pandemic, you know, mentioned very clearly who our essential workers are. And so, you know, I think that, you know, we need to really honor them and continue to fight for them. I think voting reforms is important. So we had an amazing election. I you know, give kudos to where kudos should be delivered. But there's also some things that I think we can improve upon. And I think, you know, we saw the no excuse absentee ballot balloting in the May primary. We did not extend that to the general election, and I think we could have done that. And you know, I was at St. Luke's grading voters, and I saw policy come full circle. Where there was a woman who was voting in line. She was there for many hours. She didn't meet the 65-year-old threshold, you know, for the absentee ballot. And she unfortunately, you know, passed out, and an ambulance had to come. And so, you know, I saw policy come full circle on that particular issue. And she just said, I just didn't meet the criteria, but this election was so important for me to be here. And so, you know, you see something like that and you're like, gosh, I wish we could have got that done for her. But also, so, you know, you were so proud that, you know, she was there, you know, doing her civic duty. And I think that's how much, you know, pride Hoosiers had in coming out and voting this year. And then obviously, you know, we talked about redistricting, but also the Indiana Black Legislative Caucus is going to put some proposals forward for, you know, just some reform in regards to policing. And I think that we should, you know, take those very seriously. I know Mayor Styron, you are doing such a great job, you know, in the town of Zionsville, kind of leading that charge. I was with you all with the candlelight vigil after, you know, the George Floyd situation happened, you know, and so we cannot, you know, take the foot off the gas on this issue and cannot forget about it just because it was 6 months ago. We've got to do something about that. So, and then me personally, I've got some bills I'm really excited to share with you. They're not all finalized yet. I'm still kind of, you know, moving some things around, but you know, I plan to file a bill on trying to ban conversion therapy and getting that practice out of our state. That would be a huge win for our LGBTQ folks living here. I like to file a bill, you know, about the chief diversity, inclusion, and equity officer for each of our school districts. I know the city of Carmel has just recently hired their inclusion officer. I know Washington Township Schools just did something very similar. And I think even in our rural parts of Indiana, it's important for our children to see someone who looks different than they are. And that way they can have that honest conversation and know that it's okay and that we should celebrate that. I also have a bill tackling food deserts. So I think that, again, the COVID-19 has shown a big spotlight on a lot of these issues that I think we're deficient in. And there's some zip codes in the city of Indianapolis that we really have to, not just the city of Indianapolis, but really other parts of our state, even rural parts of our state, you know, and we've got to do something about that. And then I think the last one that's been kind of a hot button issue is, you know, doing something on the 5G side of things. I know that I've been hearing from constituents all across the district in all 3 counties that I represent that, you know, they feel that a little powerless when it comes to these small cell towers being put up in their neighborhoods. And gosh, they wish they would have just had a little bit extra notice. And so I've got a bill that hopefully will address that. So yeah, so that's what I've got cooking.
well, both of you are working so hard. How can residents best reach out to you if they found, if they heard something about what you all are working on that they're particularly interested in, or if they didn't hear you talk about something that they're very particularly interested in? What's your preferred way of community reaching out?
Probably the easiest way is do H24, which is it's house H24 at iga.in.gov, and that comes into me, and that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Great.
Yeah, same for on my side. It's going to be S as in Senate 29 at iga.in.gov. And one of the things that I love to share with constituents is that even if you agree with me on some of these issues, I still want to hear from you. I still want to know, that you are on my side. I know sometimes I think we just hear from folks who are very, very passionate about some of these issues, which always happy to hear from folks. And I think, I pride myself on trying to correspond with as many folks as I can, although it is difficult. Sometimes I receive 200 or 300 emails a day, and it's hard to sift through those. But and again, if please, call our Capitol office and ask for an appointment. I think there's a lot of people that just say, well, I don't want to bother him or bother her. It's no bother. That's what we're here for. We want to hear from you. We want to talk to you.
Yeah, I want to reiterate that. I mean, please reach out, call me. You can call the office if you want to, I'll call you back. If you want to meet, I have coffee with lots of people. Well, I used to. Now it's more we meet Zoom. But
yeah.
In the old days, I've been to a lot of Starbucks and coffee shops around the district. So happy to meet with you. Happy to sit down and talk, or a phone call or email or whatever, but please reach out. I mean, I love hearing, what you guys think. It's important, keeps me informed. I learn from everybody I talk to.
Oh, just wonderful. You are all delightful and generous with your time. And I, on behalf of our community, we are so grateful to have you working so diligently in our best interests.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily.
Thanks for your service.
JD.
As mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you for what you do.
Great. It's fun to go to work every single day.
It is. It really is. Happy holidays to everybody.
Yep.
Happy holidays.
And a very happy new year to both.
Same to you.
Thank you very much. You too.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.